This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. This is an important video. Most of them are important videos, but I emphasize it for those out there who are trying to wake people up and show them what this world really is about. National Geographic released an article today about what has been uncovered in Peru, which was an ancient mass child sacrifice, which may be the world's largest, with more than 140 children who were ritually killed in a single event in Peru more than 500 years ago. And they say, what could possibly have been the reason? So let's start there. What could possibly have been the reason? I don't know. I guess there was just a bunch of people who had a few drinks and they all decided to sacrifice their children, right? I mean, what do you think the reason is? The reason, as is always the reason with abducted and missing children, is Satanism. Because that's what it is. That's what it's about. And some of you might go, well, why do you always have to emphasize about this and talk about the negative? Well, if you want to live in lollipop land, if you want to open up the board game candy land and you want to pretend you're living in there, have a good time. Because while you're having a good time, this stuff that they say was going on 500 years ago is still going on. And it's going on more rapidly than this. And I guarantee you there have been much larger mass ritual sacrifices than just 140 children in this one specific event, which they're calling the largest of all time. I guarantee it. For those of you who have heard throughout your lives about missing children, right? You've seen the signs on the milk cartons, which they don't do anymore. I wonder why. Missing kids that never turn up. Where do you think they go? They want you to believe that the missing child just gets raped, killed, something like that, and then what, thrown in a ditch somewhere? Then how come nobody's found the child? This is why, because these children are used in ritual sacrifice events where they're completely mutilated, their bodies are eaten, and all that's left are some bones, and most of the times now, if not all of the times now, they actually cook the bones and cremate the bones so that there's no trace of ever finding these kids. Why is it important? Because it's still going on today. And if you're somebody out there with a heart, you should care about making people aware of this stuff. Making parents aware of what could possibly happen to their kids, because kids are still getting kidnapped and abducted. This isn't just covens and breeding where these Satanists are breeding their own children. Yes, that does happen. And yes, those children need our prayers too. But there's also children who are still abducted and go missing every year around the world. So let's take a look, before I get into it, at what the Bible tells us about these types of sacrifices. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 21, you shall not give any of your children to offer them to Moloch, and so profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 31, you shall not worship the Lord your God in that way. For every abominable thing that the Lord hates, they have done for their gods, for they even burn their sons and their daughters in the fire to their gods. Okay, this is what the Bible tells us about human sacrifice, which was going on back then. It still goes on now. They didn't just suddenly wake up one day and just go, you know what, let's not do this anymore. Okay, Christianity's all of a sudden didn't just stop. They're doing everything they can now to suppress it. The occult didn't just wake up and go, hey, we shouldn't do this. There's the witch hunts and all this stuff that we hear about, but they've made it seem like it's a fairy tale. In reality, it's not. It's truth. And this is heartbreaking stuff. Evidence for the largest single incident of mass child sacrifice in the Americas, and likely in world history, which again, I doubt, has been discovered on Peru's northern coast. Archaeologists tell National Geographic more than 140 children and 200 young lemurs appear to have been ritually sacrificed in an event that took place some 550 years ago on a windswept bluff overlooking the Pacific Ocean, in the shadow of what was then the sprawling capital of the Chimu Empire. Scientific investigations by the International Interdisciplinary Team of Tulane University to begin their research on this. The work is supported by grants from the National Geographic Society. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, it's pretty clear in pop culture that Aleister Crowley, the man who called himself the Beast, is who these Satanists worship, right? It's who the celebrities worship. You'll see them wearing his shirts. You'll see them using his expressions, the do what thou wilt, from the Beatles to Jay-Z. Quote from Aleister Crowley, those magicians who object to the use of blood have endeavored to replace it with incense, but the bloody sacrifice, though more dangerous, is more efficient. And for nearly all purposes, human sacrifice is the best. Again, human sacrifice is the best. And this is in regards to black magic, which is what they practice all the time. And they do it on innocent children. It says, while incidences of human sacrifice among the Aztec, Maya, and Inca have been recorded in colonial era Spanish chronicles and documented in modern scientific excavations, the discovery of a large-scale child sacrifice event in the little-known pre-Columbian town is unprecedented in the Americas, if not in the entire world. It is not unprecedented, folks. It's not unprecedented. Quote, I, for one, never expected it, said the anthropologist who has worked in the region for more than 3 decades, and I don't think anyone else would have either. The researchers are in the process of submitting a report on scientific results of the discovery to a peer-reviewed scientific journal. Now, they'll probably come out with answers. Oh, all the children were sick or something. They'll make something up. This goes back to the Old Testament. This goes back to Baal worship, Moloch worship, Satan worship. This is what these people do. They do it to children. It enhances the power of their craft, their black magic. They believe the blood of a child, the most innocent and pure, enhances their powers. It's as simple as that. And these people are soulless. These people are the worst of the worst, and they're going to get it on Judgment Day. The sacrifice site, formerly known as Hunchaquito Las Lamos, is located on a low bluff just 1,000 feet from the sea amid a growing spread of cinder block residential compounds in Peru's northern district. Less than half a mile to the east of the site is the World Heritage Site of Chanchan, the ancient administrative center, and beyond its walls, the modern provincial capital of Trujillo. This goes on to talk about the area, and they talk about the Incas, and they talk about how this stuff was tribal, right? And the Incas were the ones who did it, and the Mayans and stuff like that. Even though these are tribes who were celebrated in our society, right? Oh, the Incas, the Mayas. Oh, I mean, we're supposed to care about these sick, the word, I don't know what were detestable, satanic, cultic cultures that these tribes live, which they practice cannibalism and all this stuff, which, again, you're seeing now more and more in television, from Santa Clarita Diet to zombie movies left and right, to vampire movies being pushed, okay? This is to indoctrinate and desensitize people and get them prepared for what is to come, which is going to be a society that lives this way. Hey, did you know by eating a baby you could live longer? I can. Did you know by eating a baby you can have your skin will look better? You won't have to get Botox as much? Really? Because that's how shallow of a world we live in. But to think for 1 second that this stuff doesn't go on anymore is being as naive as possible. It says the skeletal remains of both children and animals show evidence of cuts to the sternum as well as rib dislocations, which suggests that the victims' chests were cut open and pulled apart, perhaps to facilitate the removal of the heart. And that's exactly right. Because they take the heart and they take the organs out of this. Now, I know a lot of you are familiar with organ harvesting, which goes on. Yes, and I know the Clinton Foundation, it's not just, liberal people. That's why I don't cover this stuff, because people go, oh, the Clinton Foundation, they're responsible for for harvesting. They're not the only ones responsible. Republicans, liberals, whatever you want to call them, they're all responsible. They're all doing this. There's no need to label. I mean, yeah, it's so widespread. It's unbelievable. And people just think that it's, this one specific group, or it's just, it's liberals and it's just the Clintons. No, it's Satanists. And all people in Congress go through the Masonic lodges. These are all people who worship Lucifer. And they remove the heart. They eat the heart. It's part of the ceremony. They eat the body. Cannibalism is part of these rituals. The remains of 3 adults, a man and 2 women, were found in close proximity of the children and animals. Signs of blunt force trauma to the head and a lack of grave goods with the adult bodies led researchers to suspect that they may have played a role in the sacrifice event and were dispatched shortly thereafter. The 140 sacrificed children range in age from about 5 to 14, with the majority between the ages of 8 and 12. Most were buried facing west out to the sea. The llamas were less than 18 months old and generally interred facing east toward the high peaks of the Andes. I mean, you can see these photos. It's just, it's more of the same. I mean, I don't know how much, I talk about this stuff and people say you're crazy. I talk about it and people say, who cares, right? I mean, if you don't care about a child being ritually killed and murdered, an innocent kid, and it's not just children, there's adults, but the children are the core of Satanism. So for anyone who wants to stop Satanism, stop the occult, it starts with child sacrifice. That is the core of all of this stuff. It's not money. It's not, setting up, the expansion of the Federal Reserve and all this stuff that they have planned. The core of what they do revolves around these children, period. That's how they that's how they do this magic, this black magic crap that they do. It's heartbreaking. I mean, it really is. Look at the photos. I mean, an unprecedented event, says National Geographic. Really? This is going on all over the world today, yesterday, every day. Until now, it says the largest mass child sacrifice event for which they have evidence is the ritual murder of internment of 42 children at Templo Mayor in the Aztec capital. The discovery of individual child sacrifice victims recovered from Inca mountaintop rituals has also captured the world's attention. Yeah? So what? They're going to deflect and say, well, oh, and it says down below, it's ritual killing. It's very systematic. Exactly. And it is. And it goes on today. Why would they just suddenly say, oh, because these tribes that we're told to worship, I'm not told to worship, but we learn about these tribes in school. You don't learn anything real about the world. Right? And then they glorify these tribes. Human sacrifice has been practiced in nearly all corners of the globe at various times, and scientists believe that the ritual may have played an important role in the development of complex societies through social stratification and control of populations by elite social classes. Sum it up for you? I'll read it again. Let me slow it down. Human sacrifice has been practiced in nearly all corners of the globe at various times. So why would it stop? And scientists believe that the ritual may have played an important role in the development of complex societies through social stratification and control of populations by elite social classes. Thank you. That sums it up. But people are just going to read that and they're not even going to know what it means. They're going to be like, oh, but that was 500 years ago. That stuff doesn't go on anymore. Hold on, I got to tweet my food out to people. And I take pictures of my toenails and show. I mean, boy, it's all right there, folks. This has been going on. It's still going on. The article's longer. It just goes on to talk about, what they believe, and they interview people. Oh, well, this stuff 500 years ago, this was more normal. Yeah, it's still going on now. This is where your missing kids go that never get found. Whether it's, the one I reported on, I believe it was in Kansas, where all these kids just suddenly go missing from foster homes, never be found again. Yeah, no. Wonder where they're going. They're just vanishing. Like I've said a million times, you can't go missing if you want. Because trust me, I'd like to go missing. Well, not missing they'll make me go missing, I'm sure, at some point. But you want to go out in the woods and maybe the only place you can go, but the next thing you know, there's a drone flying over your head. But there's really nowhere to go. There's nowhere to hide. But somehow all these kids, millions of kids go missing every year and nobody knows where they go. They never find their bodies. There's no evidence. I wonder where they go. How stupid you have to be not to realize that the occult is running rampant, that Satanism, they have deceiving people by pretending they're atheist organizations. These people are pedophiles. Okay, they're cannibals. And there's nothing to be afraid of as far as we go. People go, oh, it's intimidating to hear someone's a cannibal. Is it? Come try to bite me and eat me. I'll deck you faster than you could say turtle head. Okay? So it's important for people to not be afraid or intimidated by this stuff. It's important not to dismiss this stuff and just go, oh, it's just negative. I don't want to deal with it. Well, guess what? If you're aware of this stuff and you're not at least telling people about it or making people aware, I don't know how you can live with yourself. I really don't. It's important information. There's lives at stake every day. And people just don't seem to care. They're like, I'm going to bury my head in the sand and I'm going to wait for the trumpets to sound. And you're a mean call for an uprising and you yell a lot. And could you please not scream at me? Can you please not? This is the society we live in. Nobody seems to care. You guys see how Christians act here on YouTube? Oh, this person says it's by your works and not you're not saved through faith, and you must not really be a Christian. They spend days yelling at each other, bickering. This person's saved by work. Oh, this person says this. Oh, this person said he said hell, or he said damn it. Or this person doesn't think hell's eternal. Oh, yeah, let's care about this stuff and judge other Christians who, if you believe, are saved by faith and might have different doctrine than you have. Then aren't they saved? But no, they just rather put their heads in that and fight and give each other anxiety and stress over what's right and what's wrong and bicker and debate. Meanwhile, the enemy just continues to get stronger. The enemy continues to spread. And this stuff continues to go on because people bury their heads in the sand. Well, I won't do it. These kids need our help. People need to become aware. And raising awareness is the number one key. Because before we can do anything, people need to become aware of it. This isn't just some random event here that took place 500 years ago in Peru. It's going on every single day. And I can't imagine, You know, they say that's the biggest one. I doubt it. You got the Beltane coming up, you know, ritual season's upon us. It's just pray for these children out there. You know, whether it's an innocent child who is born into this through breeding, or it's a child who's abducted and kidnapped out of somewhere like Kansas or some foster home or daycare center. Absolutely, it's heartbreaking. I thank you for listening to today's show. Sorry I got a little rant there at the end. I just get fired up about stuff like this. I can't stand to see this. And the article talks about it like it's not even devastating. It's like, why did they do it? Interesting. We need to study more and figure out why they might have done it. How about the kids that were just ritually killed here? Anyone care? Granted, it's 500 years ago. It's not yesterday. But, I mean, wow. What kind are you going to bring in Sherlock Holmes to figure this out? I wonder what the ritual sacrifice could have been for. It couldn't have been for Satan, right? Because he's not real. Sure. What's the saying? The greatest trick Satan ever played was convincing the world he didn't exist. Exactly. I thank you again for listening to today's show. God bless all of you and your families.